Let me ask you an important question. Are you listening? Because this might be the most important question you're ever asked. What are you waiting for? What do you keep telling yourself that you'll start when you're ready, or when the time is right, or when the path becomes clear? I'll give you a moment until that thing for you becomes obvious. Okay, now I have another question. How long have you been telling yourself that? How long have you been putting off that dream, or that change, or whatever it is for you? Are you ready for my final question? How far along would you be if you had started the first time you thought about it? Even if you just had the idea for the first time 6 months ago, and you only worked on it a half hour a day, you'd be almost 100 hours into this goal. Do you know what you can do in 100 hours? Now, if you've been thinking about this thing for years, you probably could have done it multiple times over. Feels a little like a gut punch, right? Well, want to know a hard truth? Yeah, that gut punch amplifies when you allow yourself to really feel the regret of not going toward things that are important to you. But here's the reason that you can't just ignore it. You're actually carrying that gut punch around with you all of the time, whether you're feeling it consciously or not. It kind of reminds me of morning sickness. You get really used to feeling nauseous for so long that it just is, but it's also affecting everything that you want to do and kind of don't want to do any of it. It affects your motivation, your mood, and putting off your dreams does that same thing because you're telling yourself you're not worth it through your actions. And I know that feels like a little bit of a stretch conclusion for some people, but hear me out. Because you can't tell yourself that other things are more important without also telling yourself that your desires are less important. And if your natural God-given desires are less important, you're saying that your interest in something is not worth the focus in this moment in time. So all of your moments end up stacking up with this overall trend of your energy being put towards someone and something else. And that, my friend, is telling yourself that you're not worth it. You're not worth this moment. You're not worth the time. You're not worth the energy. You're not worth the risk. So now imagine explaining to your 80-year-old self why you never tried. As hard of a pill as that is to swallow, it also sheds light on something pretty huge. Changing that mental roadblock is one of the most effective things you can do to change your life. So that's what we're talking about today. Our guest is Jodi Wellman. She's a speaker, author, and facilitator, and she helps her clients live squander-free lives while they're lucky enough to still be above ground. She named her business 4,000 Mondays because it shines light on the finite number of weeks that we have to live like we really mean it. And her TEDx talk is called How Death Can Bring You Back to Life, with over 1.3 million views. And it's the 14th most watched TEDx talk released in 2022 out of almost 16,000. And she's also the author of You Only Die Once, How to Make It to the End with No Regrets. So 3 things we will learn are how constantly chasing thrills might actually be stealing your joy, how to scientifically tailor social and leisure activities for maximum joy without burnout, and a few more secret hacks for everyday happiness. I've hired a lot of people over the years, and I can tell you the biggest mistake that most business owners make. They think posting a job and waiting is a strategy, but it is not. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you stand out and hire fast. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates so that you can reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. One of the things that I love about Indeed is that it makes hiring so fast because the best candidates are already there, actively looking. Plus, with Indeed sponsored jobs, there's no monthly subscriptions, no long-term contracts, and you only pay for results. How fast is Indeed? Well, in the minute I've been talking to you, 23 hires were made on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/mindlove. Just go to Indeed.com/mindlove right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/mindlove. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's be real about something. Workplace stress is not just part of the job anymore. 61% of people are dealing with stress levels that are way beyond normal, and it is not sustainable. I used to think that grinding through stress was some kind of badge of honor. Push harder, sleep less, ignore what your body was telling you. And it nearly broke me when I was working for startups. And look, maybe that voice in your head telling you to make a change is right. Maybe you do need to quit your job or completely flip your life. But whether you're making big moves or just trying to survive your current situation, you need tools to handle it well. And that's where therapy comes in. Modern therapy teaches you how to set boundaries without the guilt, how to trust your intuition instead of second-guessing yourself constantly, how to make better decisions from a place of clarity instead of chaos. And BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform with over 30,000 therapists. They've got a 4.9 rating from 1.7 million reviews because it actually works. You can talk to someone from anywhere, and you can switch therapists anytime if it's not the right fit. A vacation won't fix chronic stress, but the right support can help you navigate whatever comes next. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. My listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/mindlove. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mindlove. Can we talk about back to school chaos for a second? The kids are getting back into routines, everyone's schedules are crazy, and suddenly you're supposed to have dinner on the table every night like some kind of magician. But want to know what I figured out? Shopping, planning, and cooking food really can be simple and stress-free, which is why I love Hungry Root. Hungry Root takes the stress out of mealtime by filling your cart with personalized picks and planning your week of meals, getting smarter with every order. With over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, many ready in just 15 minutes or less, it's a huge lifesaver on those busy weeknights. I personally love their Smart Cart technology. It learns what I actually like and then recommends groceries, recipes, and supplements tailored to my tastes and needs. Plus, I love the kids' snacks section where I get these really easy snacks to just keep in the car or throw in our to-go bags or lunch boxes for those of you who need them. They screen out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. They only source high-quality meat and seafood with no hormones or antibiotics, and they carry trusted brands like Oatly and Vital Farms. The time that I have gotten back has been incredible. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/mindlove and use code MINDLOVE. That's hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/mindlove, code MINDLOVE.
The research is so clear that when we do the conscious death reflection, which is different, by the way, than just that sort of subtle, it's called mortality salience to get super boring sciencey, but like, we're going to watch the news and there's going to be death there. And that's not conscious death reflection. That's just sad. But when we do the thing and we do it with intention and we stop and we say, okay, like my thing is, how many Mondays do we have left? So I have 1,814 right now this week. Hopefully I get more, but maybe I'll get less. The science works for us, even though it sounds super crappy to be talking about scarcity. But I also know that that's what reminds us, because when we see it as temporary or rare or limited time only, our perception of its value spikes through the roof.
Turn up your frequency with MindLove. Bite-sized brain hacks for seekers, dreamers, and doers. It's time to give your mind a little love with your host, Melissa Monti.
So I'm excited to dive into this topic because I feel like my entire life path comes from the idea of making the most of this beautiful, wild life. Whether we have thousands of them or just this one, why not make the most of it? And I know a huge topic of it is making the most of our limited time. What inspired you down this path?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does seem a little bit potentially morbid, right? To be talking about how oh, the ultimate begin with the end in mind. Like, yeah, we're totally going to die. And let's not dwell there, but let's use it as a motivator to live, with a little more urgency and attention while we get to be here. I come by it kind of honestly, like I've always been interested in this idea of the absurdity of how it's so finite. We work hard. Most of us do, many of us do, to try and work on our lives and our bodies and our souls and all the parts of us. And then it's just a bit bizarre and odd that poof, all of a sudden one day we won't be here, but we try our best until we go. So that was always odd to me. But I witnessed something that I didn't expect. So my mom died in her late 50s. She had a heart attack. And it wasn't the grieving that got me about her. It was that she died with so many regrets of things that she wished that she had done. And I saw that, and it was like this massive wake-up call about, whoa, whoa, whoa. Not only that life is short, like that I could maybe die at 58, knock on wood that I don't, but that I don't want to get to the end and feel like I have a whole, laptop full and drawers full and ideas full of things that I didn't take action on. So that really woke me up to this, whoa, like this is precious, like you said, this is wild and precious, and let's do something with it.
When people realize, because I think this happens in a span of time, there's like this period of life where it feels like you have your whole life ahead of you. And then all of a sudden, for me, it was almost like, oh my gosh, wait, I'm not getting any younger. Or it was, I think it also followed living a period of time where I actually started to get a little more responsible. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, but like in my 20s, I was just thinking about that evening, maybe that weekend, if I was really thinking ahead. And then I shift to like, okay, I'm wasting my life with all of this. And I start getting responsible, paying the bills, going to a job.
Yeah.
But then it's like, you realize you've been living the same day over and over again, even when you're making the money you wanted to be making, you get the raise or whatever.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it's like this different crisis. It's all these shifts, and people don't necessarily know, wait, I thought I was going the right direction. Is this the right direction?
Oh, I love the way you've just put this, because you're so right. And there's actual science in the psychology research is clear that our perception of our time horizon totally changes our experience, not just of our values at the time. So you're right. In our 20s, it's like, where's my next drink? And then when we are older, we do tend to value different things, and we are aware of time differently, combined with what you said. And I'm glad you said it, because we get responsible and we get routines. And then we do the same routines. And that's when we become, I call it like highly functioning zombies, where all of a sudden it's like, how do you tell the difference between Tuesday and Wednesday? I don't know anymore. We become an autopilot and we take life for granted. So it's this weird thing where we're more in tune, where we're like, holy shit, my time is limited. I want more from it. But then we're also busting ourselves because we are aware that we become a little attempting to be too efficient, too in control. And we're aware, and then we get scared, like, am I squandering my time? So you've just articulated that tension, I think, so well. And it's tense, isn't it?
I know, especially because I think that one's the scariest, because like I said, it begins with thinking we're doing the right thing. I remember actually having a point in time where I'm like, oh my goodness, routines are saving my life.
Yeah.
I've been really avoiding them and resisting them, and now it's the best thing ever. But then again, it was like that routine zombie. And you have a saying where if you're not green and growing, you're ripe and rotting. What does that mean?
Most humans have a need, not just for novelty, but to be learning and acquiring new information, and somehow exposure to something that opens our eyes up to whether it's ourselves or at least to other new pieces of information. And some people, you're like, no, I know some people who could care less if they ever learned a new thing again in their life. And we all have thresholds and preferences. But this idea about everything in life is about change. And like, you can look at anything in nature. If it is not budding new leaves, or if it is not literally getting bigger, what it's a signifier of is that it is actually rotting and dying. And so this idea that maybe we don't have to literally be enrolled in a class to be learning old-fashioned style, but are we becoming more aware of ourselves? Are we becoming more aware of what makes us tick, what ticks us off, how to design a life that we would be proud to skid into the grave at the end and feel like we did it justice. So it's about figuring out what makes us feel alive and owning up to that and choosing to live rather than, again, letting the months just glaze over. And then all of a sudden it's the years. And I mean, we are busy. And I think, by the way, I'm not an animal. Like, I do respect a healthy routine that helps keep the wheels on the bus, especially with children, et cetera, right? Like, you can't just live life willy-nilly in an attempt to say, I'm seizing the day. Every day's an adventure. Like, okay, sometimes you just need to like catch your freaking breath. I get it. But it's about exposure to new things that for most of us, that's oxygen.
Routines still save my life. I would die without my routines. I love them. They keep me organized. They keep me going. They ground me in the activities that I want to make sure I come back to over and over again.
Yeah.
But now, part of that routine is actually coming up with something novel. What am I looking forward to now? What am I creating now? What am I leaning into now? And so I love incorporating that type of routine because it's not the set thing. It's like, okay, what's the focus for this next week? Even with my meditation, that's a routine, but I will, when I feel like that's getting stale, I'm like, okay, well, now I'm going to do the Silva mind control method. That's what I'm working on the next month. Now I'm going to do only mantra meditations. That's what I'm working on the next month. And so it keeps it exciting to come back to over and over again. And I feel like I'm growing with it, even if I'm not doing the exact same thing every single time.
Melissa, you just nailed it. I love that so much. So you've also highlighted, I think, the distinction between, in some ways, like rituals and routines. And I know it might sound like semantics, but sometimes in life we do things that are rituals, which, by the way, are really usually good, healthy things that add to our well-being. Some people are like, it's like a religious experience, the way they make their coffee in the morning, or hypothetically speaking, some of us, it's like you said, your meditation, it's special, it's sacred. There's some, sometimes family holidays, like special times of year, there's a ritual we engage in. And I'm not here to say that we need to detonate each and every one of them for the sake of novelty. You nailed it. Recognize what's special and what anchors you and what brings you joy and well-being and all the great stuff. And like you said, when you sense it's stale, you use the perfect word. We don't want stale lives. We want there to be freshness, and that's okay. And all that looks like is maybe it's just doing a little shake up of the workout routine or the drive to or from work or daycare, just to take a different route, see what's there, or try a different restaurant, or maybe it is something in any of the things that we've got on seeming autopilot. Every once in a while, just be conscious and say, what could I do that's a little bit different? Do I change my breakfast just this one day? Now, I get pretty religious with my breakfast too. And I also come from a history of eating disorders. So we don't want to mess with our food schedules too much sometimes, but that's a good way to play too.
When I was younger, there was always a really big juxtaposition in my parents. They were divorced, and my mom and my stepdad especially, his routines, so funny. Like, he can't leave the bedroom in the morning without combing his hair first. Like, he will not come out. And he just like shuffles along really slow. Well, gotta do this now. And then he'll like narrate it. And my dad was complete opposite. We'd be like on the way to the movies and he'd be like, let's just go camping. And he always had the top storage thing on the top of his hatchback packed, and we'd just like go camping. This was actually pretty bad when I was like 3 years old and my mom thought we were going to the movies, but but I appreciated his spontaneity. And one time his tire popped, and it was like the middle of the night on the way to Tahoe before cell phones, and he just like laughed and would just brush it off. But then he died when I was 19 of lymphoma, and I could see his eyes pleading for more time. And there's one thing I knew about my dad too, is my dad didn't really like having a stable job. And so he didn't make a lot of money. He just did kind of this side thing, but then he'd have these business ideas. And one of the stories that I ended up adopting from him was hearing my mom always say, he's always into something new, but he never follows through. He's always into something new, but he never follows through. And I think that was true for him. I think he had undiagnosed ADHD, like, and so it was just a whole thing. And so I saw what it looked like to actually live into the moment, but maybe not to have the self-worth that you deserve to do something big in this world. And it took me a long time after he passed to really put that together. But I know that you also had a story of discovering your mom's unfulfilled dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. But I know that you also had a story of discovering your mom's unfulfilled dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm still touched just by your anecdote too about your dad. And we'll probably come back to some of those themes, like about spontaneity and about, the roles our parents play sometimes in showing us what's comfortable or not, and comfortable being dangerous sometimes, like in a rut kind of way. My mom was super creative, sweet lady, super bipolar, struggled mightily with highs, big lows. And that didn't make it any easier for her to execute on any of her dreams. Right. And she wrote a children's manuscript. It was called Dream Dust. And this is all very ironic. So just like brace yourself for some sad irony here. This idea about a little creature in the woods that would go sprinkle on all the little animals in the kingdom, dream dust to have sweet dreams and make their dreams come true. And my mom would sprinkle dream dust on me at night, and it was lovely. And she even illustrated this book, and she sent it out, I think, to one or two publishers, and then she got rejected, which is like exceedingly normal in publishing. And then she shelved it. She put it away forever. And then when I was cleaning up her stuff, days after she died, there it was, the Dream Dust manuscript in one of her drawers. And it was just this profound, sad moment of, well, I've unfortunately coined her place, like the land of dormant intentions. It was sort of like where dreams went to die in a really sad way, that she didn't have enough dream dust to sprinkle on herself, number one. But I also could see my own tendencies. Like I come by fear, honest. I'm afraid of rejection, failure, spiders. Like, I don't want those things either in my life. And I recognize, like, oh, I could go down this path too. And that was, for me, like I said, the biggest aha. And it was, and it struck me that, wait a minute, we could go through lives living the all talk, no action sort of ethos. And I think that when I've learned in psychology, that I've just found annoying and fascinating in equal measure, is that there's a phenomenon where sometimes we'll dream something and we'll fantasize about it. It's called positive fantasies, just enough that it gives us enough of a jolt of satisfaction that we can shelve it and not even really do much about it until we revisit it again. And then we dream a little dream about it. Oh yeah, I'm going to launch this business, or, oh yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to travel and take that route across the road trip of the country. And then we lose the steam to execute. And I don't know, maybe in life, like maybe that's a life worth lived. Like maybe that's satisfying enough. But for most of us, I do think we want to actually go and have some of those experiences, or we want to go and press the go button and try the business, or go and try applying for the big job that you might get turned down for. And you will have feelings of the sort that don't feel great. But at the end of it all, this is, I think, where this is culminating. It's like, what is the better feeling when we're reclined on our deathbeds? Is it the regret of the coulda, shoulda, woulda, which regret research is super clear. That stuff does haunt us at the end. Those wonderings about, like, what if I had taken that path? What could my life have been like? And we always fantasize about how our lives would have been better if we did that thing, funny enough. That how do we get there and go, like, I tried it. And yeah, maybe move into San Diego to do that job. Maybe that didn't work out so hot, but at least it led me to go to Des Moines. And then I did that thing and I met my family. And then that was great. Like, the feeling of satisfaction of giving it a shot, that's a very distinctly different experience than the feeling of, I never went for it because I just played it small,
Yeah, I do know. When I look back at my dad,
Mm-hmm.
I can see why it was so difficult. He had never had success. And so it's hard to feel that in your body and believe that something's possible. And it makes it really difficult to step into it in a real way, because there's always the other voice of, like, this isn't possible. This isn't real. Like, it literally is not real for him. And for me, it was like I was a step ahead, even though I was younger. I
Mhm.
got jobs really easily. I found success in school. I didn't have the kind of trauma that my dad did quite yet, sort of, but not as bad as his. I and even then it was difficult to envision for myself. But I remember actually realizing that I had adopted his story
Mm.
of I just had this idea like, well, I can never follow through with anything. So everything was like a 60% project and then I'd let it drop off.
Mm.
And then when I put that together, that I was adopting his, and I really did start to do the inner work of like, okay, this is a limiting belief. How do I rewrite a limiting belief? And I was really following the help methods in my books that I was reading. And I started to rewrite those, and change started to come pretty quickly. Of
Mm.
course, there are always deeper layers that I uncovered years later and what have you. But I remember sitting there and even today, when I can feel myself getting in my way, I'm like, it's like I picture him right there and it's like,
Ah.
okay, we got this. I'm changing this for us. Oh, I'm gonna cry just thinking about
Oh,
it.
oh,
And it's like I can feel him pushing me and knowing that I'm bringing him with me on this. He'd have
mm,
rather see me accomplish it than even himself. And
mm.
then also, I'm doing this for my children so they don't even have to think about it. They know what the follow through looks like.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Thank you for taking that puppy home and also for sharing that about your dad. Because I feel that way too. Funny enough, here I just published a book that I also illustrated, and there's no coincidence there. I didn't do it consciously, but it was like, holy cow! Like I think I did this in honor of and for, and just like on one hand, it's like I got this for us, mom too, and on the other hand, it's like saying to the gods in the world of like, you can't do scary things. Screw you! Yes, I can. Equal pleasure. Um, but you're right about demonstrating to your kids. Like, if what you said is your dad didn't have experience of experiencing that feeling of success or maybe seeing it around him, like we have an ability to role model, whether it's for our kids, whether it's for people we lead at work, or even for our friend group. Because the common adage, it's not scientifically based, but it's sort of just folklore. Like we're the average of the people we hang around with the most, the 3 to 5 people. If we are the person who's saying, I'm gonna take some action here. And I'm gonna talk with my friend group, for example, or my daughter, or my son, like people that I know and care about. Let's talk about the bucket list. And let's not have it be hypothetical, because a bucket list is a very dangerous thing, in my opinion, because I think it's just a repository for dreams that we will continue to defer, unless it's actually a list that's like sizzly hot. And we say, okay, yeah, I'll talk no action, honey. Where's the column that says by when? Or where's the column that you're allowed to drop stuff off the list? Like, we're never going to live long enough to do all the crap we want to do, I wouldn't think. But are you the person that demonstrates it for your kids, for your friends? Are you the person that gets your friends together for brunch and you're like, guys, what do we want to, like, what do you want to make happen this year? And let's not get to the end of the year and be like, oh, yeah, well, I guess I'll do it next year. Like, what's one thing? And we can hold each other accountable. It's not your job to do that for your friends, but you know what? You don't even need to be that explicit. You could just be the one getting up and getting out and living. So my husband and I moved most of the year to Palm Springs in California because we just needed to escape the Chicago winter. And, a dear friend of mine, Becca, she said, wow, 'cause she's had longings to move to different areas. And she's like, you're just showing me like it's possible. Like these are things that we think about, oh, other people do it. Other people pick up and move. You can do it. It's not easy. It's just a crap a ton of administration and it's really annoying, but you can do it, right? You could change your job. You could go back to school. Imagine that. You could start over in a new industry. Yeah, at the bottom of the totem pole. But again, wouldn't that be worth it to give yourself a shot at more joy, to start off as an intern, even in your early 40s, just because you meant like, I've always wanted to be a graphic designer and I didn't want to do that other thing anymore. And I'm willing to pay my dues again because I get to go home satisfied. We get to do things even if they don't seem easy, especially if they don't seem easy. You're getting me all worked up over here, Melissa.
I'm always worked up. I think that is the biggest thing I even got from college. I didn't get a lot from college, but I was a huge party girl. But the biggest thing was there's something powerful about moving away right at 18 with a bunch of people who had moved away and then realizing I wasn't going to go back home. So I'm just going to stay here. This is if I can do this at 18, just move to a whole different city in the middle of nowhere, like not know anybody and make friends and get an apartment and have my own routines, then I can do this at any time in my life.
You need to expand on that. Like, I love that so much because that is a huge point. We don't know anything and we're barely sober at that age and we're somehow figuring it out. Why did we get so rigid in our 30s and 40s and 50s and so on, right? Isn't that funny?
Exactly.
We've already proven to ourselves, I did that thing. Maybe it's because I was like, we're totally naive and we didn't even know, but you know what? We got this. And it like, would we regret it at the end of our lives if we didn't do the thing? Probably.
In the case of my dad, he didn't have a lot to begin with. And so really there was only up to go. It was like he wouldn't have been losing anything if he really pursued his dreams. For me, I sort of destroyed my life and didn't have a lot of options. It was like, okay, well, I'm not going to go applying for jobs like this. But it pushed me into entrepreneurship. But for you, you found success in the corporate world. And a lot of people that I work with now are in that position where it's not like they're building from the rubble. They built this whole life of security and success, and they were working their way up this ladder. And then they got there and it didn't feel like they thought. And they're just thinking, is the next milestone going to feel different? And then after 12 of them, they realize it's not. It can't. The 13th milestone is not going to be the one. None of the other ones were the one. Tell me about your transition there. How you, what was going through your mind, and then how you actually weighed those options to realize that starting your own thing was a better choice.
Oh yeah. Yeah. This is a very important part of my life where I found myself super stuck. So I call it sometimes like, oh, the trappings of success, like wah, wah, like, okay, yeah, I think I was doing well, but I was just so bored. Well, okay, it was my experience at the time, but I was then so unsure of what to do next that instead of trying to, handle it like an adult who is like highly functioning, I then slipped into the decade of eating disorders because that was my warped but trying hard way of getting control over a life where I didn't know what was next. And I felt creatively thwarted. And, when any one of your values is stepped on, you don't feel alive. And for me, creativity was a big one. And I just didn't know what I needed and wanted to do. And I admit now that I was just hoping to be saved. Like I was like, oh, a headhunter is going to swoop in and pluck me out of despair. And that's going to change the trajectory of my life. Yeah, you know what? Fuck that. Like you could wait. And then that taught me a very important lesson. Like, oh, honey, you got to do it yourself. Like you have to figure it out, try things on for size, get up and get out, see what sticks, see what doesn't, be confident about it. And that was in and around the time that my mom died. And that was an important sort of impetus. So I have this thing, I call it the stapler story because I distinctly remember being in my office at my corporate job where I was just doing my thing at my desk and I stapled some pages together and my stapler ran out of staples. I was like, oh, well, okay, I can fix this problem. I get up and I go to the storeroom and I get, a little row of staples and I load in a row into my stapler and it struck me. I said, oh, I'd better not be here by the time I'm done with this row of staples. And I looked at the box. I'm like, 200 of these puppies? Oh, yeah, I'm out of here. Okay. So then what happens is I go about my life doing absolutely nothing to change the situation. A year goes by. I'm stapling papers at my desk. My stapler runs out of staples. And I feel like I karate chop myself. It's like, what am I doing? And unfortunately, my stapler ran out. The same story. I'm like, I better not be here by the time this new row of staples gets exhausted. And I didn't do anything about it. And so I tell this story of woe. Maybe it's a cautionary tale for those of your listeners listening in about like, hey, I get it, but also we do have to buck up and maybe try and figure it out and get some help if you need it from therapy, get a coach to figure out what you want to do next. Work with someone like the likes of you, we can get back on track and start feeling alive again. So that for me, I got into leadership development and coaching at that time. So I did that for about a decade, had a very good time. And then I allowed myself in all of that to find a way to let 4,000 Mondays, which is kind of what I do now with speaking and writing. By the way, 4,000 Mondays, it's because we roughly get 4,000 weeks to live. There's the secret there behind that name. That was another sort of foray into I'm close, but I'm still not there. Do you know that feeling of like, I broke out, I did my thing and I was still feeling, but I still felt like, but I have this idea. I want to talk about mortality, but not like a total weirdo, ideally. And I want to, how do I do this and somehow not get kicked out off the stage? How do I do this and somehow still not repel people and keep some friends? And anyways, the journey was important. And it was, I think sometimes we have to go through those long winding roads in order to get to the clearing that we've maybe even cleared ourselves. Yeah.
I love thinking about death, but I've completely rewired my relationship with death and what I think happens. And I have no idea for sure, but I have all these ideas and they're magical. So
Can I ask you about the rewiring? Like what led to the rewiring?
I just went deep into spiritual study. I grew up in a religion that honestly, even though death was supposed to lead to heaven, it sounded terrifying to me. I'm like, how am I supposed to? It makes zero sense that I'm going to be sitting up there in heaven, but apparently my grandma's like being tortured by all of her biggest fears for like, there's no possible way. This doesn't make sense. And so just studying Ram Dass and Eastern religions and Yogananda, just a lot of different things and understanding how all of the religions, what they have in common and what they're really saying when you're not taking it so literally. And what I've learned from plant medicine, really, I think I would not have been able to feel it, grok it, as they talk about in the book, Man's Stranger in a Strange Land, that like embodying version of understanding, if it weren't for plant medicine. But it really feels like you hit that place and it's like, oh, this is death.
Oh, I love your sort of spiritual circuitous route. And you're touching on so many cool things, I think, like what I'm going to recoin, not just in my mind as I'm listening to you, like just a radical acceptance. It may not feel radical to you. I don't know, but I'm hearing it like, yeah, like this is what's happening. And the research is so clear that when we do the conscious death reflection, which is different, by the way, than just that sort of subtle, it's called mortality salience to get super boring sciencey, but like, we're going to watch the news and there's going to be death there. And that's not conscious death reflection. That's just sad and potentially scary. And it does other things to us psychologically that are not usually that productive. But when we do the thing and we do it with intention and we stop and we say, okay, like my thing is, how many Mondays do we have left? So I have 1,814 right now this week. Hopefully I get more, but maybe I'll get less. And that's the thing about stopping and thinking about it and thinking about how precious our life is, because this is where the science works for us, even though it sounds super crappy to be talking about scarcity. Like, I ain't no fool. I get it. I'm talking about, I'm like using the threat and the countdown of death in order to motivate us. But I also know that that's what reminds us, because when we see any kind of item or asset or thing, when we see it as temporary or rare or limited time only, our perception of its value spikes through the roof. And that's exactly what we need to do with our lives, because otherwise we take it for granted. We do the thing, which is, it's very comforting and delusional, which is, oh yeah, I'll get to do that later. We just defer and we keep thinking we're going to have time to live these fantastic versions of our lives, the dreams that we want to maybe think about. We put it in a holding pen that's like later, but I'm sitting here like, well, wait a sec. Like, who are we to think we're even going to get later? Because we all know the stories of dying prematurely or of getting to retirement and just not being able-bodied to get to do the walk around the island you wanted to do or whatever, and I'm not even worried so much about the life that is going to come later that's going to suck because you left it all till the end. I'm actually more concerned about the life you're living now, that like, don't we deserve, in light of the fact that it's scarce and precious and amazing, don't we deserve to just get up at bat or go onto the field? Any metaphor we can find here. Okay, Melissa, just like get on the ride. I mean, like all the things like play, show up, do it, give it a go, fail fantastically. That's the thing I'd love for us. And also I'd love for us to not have a life that's stacked backloaded into retirement that maybe we unfortunately die prematurely.
I like the concept of thinking about death in order to appreciate what's now, because we understand the depth of experience through contrast. And when my spiritual beliefs is that I chose to come into this earth.
Mm,
And so if I chose that, then why? What is available to me in this sensory experience that
mm,
is life on earth
mm,
that isn't available to me as an infinite spirit? I'm going to indulge in those things. I'm going to use all of my senses. I'm going to create. I'm going to create material things in this world. I'm going to make my soul manifest and leave my mark on the world with an essence that only I can. And when I look at it that way, then life isn't just this thing I have to get through, and then hopefully there's a kingdom of heaven waiting for me on the other side, and this is just a testing ground, and God's like making sure we're good enough to get there. It's creation. It's life is as an infinite playground,
mm.
and we each have like a snowflake perspective that's so unique that only we can imprint the way that we can.
You're just so inspiring. Just keep talking. We want more.
You have this pre-mortem concept uh, that helps people improve their current life situation. Talk
Mm.
about that for us.
Alrighty. Okay, so the book I wrote starts off with that as like one of the first chapters because before we talk about death and regrets and habits and all the fun stuff, and then by the way, shifting into like how to actually live wide and deep, we get to know ourselves, right? Like this is the how am I doing? How am I living? What's working? What am I doing that's making me feel alive? What am I doing that's making me feel dead? I call it diagnosing the dead zones, because there are parts of our lives, of course, at different stages and phases of life that maybe have flatlined. And maybe it makes sense, right? Like when you, I don't know, first have a kid, maybe your social life is going to go into the pits for a little while. And that makes sense. But sometimes we lose it. We take our eye off the ball. I don't know why I'm using so many sports metaphors. I don't even like sports, but you understand me. So I'm doing it for my dad. Like we just lose the plot. That's what we'll do. We'll talk to us off and we lose the plot. And we feel like, well, wait a minute. Wow, it's actually been a while. And like, whoa, I haven't really had a lot of fun with any of those hobbies I used to have because I've just been so busy with work or with whatever. And so the pre-mortem is this full-on self-assessment. How you doing, honey? What do you want? What makes you happy? What lights you up? And where's the gap between have you been doing those things? Because most of us haven't been, if we're getting honest, the things that make us feel like take your breath away alive, they are not as frequent in our lives as maybe they could be, should be. And actually, can I get nosy and ask you a second? Like, what is an example of something that just makes you feel undeniably alive? Like,
I used to think it was music, but I think it's actually connection. And music can really enhance that because I believe it sets you to the same vibration. But I've felt that so intensely at different concerts or festivals. And yeah, oftentimes there's MDMA involved. But nowadays, when I get that, it's with my baby, when I'm connecting with my baby, or when I have this really grateful friendship moment or gratitude for my husband. And I just feel like my skin is dancing in some sort of way, my heart bursting. It's too pleasurable, if that makes sense. Oh, and we just got a kitten, and I've had a bunch of moments as with this little fluff
Mhm.
ball just vibrating with joy.
I love hearing that. By the way, there's a concept I think you'll love. If you don't already know about it, it's called positivity resonance. And in the field of positive psychology, there's the study about when, for example, you are at a concert and you're in a group environment where you're all in it together. And so it could be like a rapturous lecture. It could be, I mean, it's really easy when you're in like literally to the beat of the drum. You're in an experience, you're swept up in an experience together. They show that your heart rates end up moving kind of in sync. And that does happen in a good connection moment. Like, I mean, I'm sure your kitten's heart rate is a little faster than yours, but that feeling of connection that sounds like so important to you. I get the feeling listening to you that unless you haven't danced super hard in that way in a while, but that might be an example where I'm going to aim to illustrate that for a lot of people I work with when I'll do a workshop, say, and I'll ask the question about like, what is something that makes you feel just undeniably alive? And then some people will come up with things that make their colleagues laugh, and it's fun and it's great. And usually the thing that they love isn't something that happens super often in their life. So whether it's that someone would say, oh my God, I love painting. And they talk about it and you can tell there's undeniable life going on coming out of their eyes. And it's like out of every orifice, they want to paint. I'm like, oh, tell me, when was the last time you painted? And then there's that wistful look. Well, it's been a few years, you know. And so this to me is opportunity number one, right? It's like identify something that brings you joy. Even if it's the weest little thing that we will underestimate, like having your kitten curl up in your neck, which actually is not wee to me. I'm a cat girl, so I'm with you. Having a moment, often some people are really into nature and it's like, oh, just watching the birds sit in the trees. Or for some people, it's, writing a letter to a loved one that they can just pop in the mail and let them know that I was thinking about you. Whatever the little thing is, whatever the big thing is, because it could be, I come alive when I'm in a new land and I'm in a new country and I'm learning the new language. Great. Maybe that's less frequent in your life than going in the backyard and watching, I don't know, the sparrows do their thing. But then back to the idea of designing our lives, because they're short and they're sweet. What if it meant that if you knew that you had a list of things that you love to do and you just said, wait, when was the last time I did that thing? Oh, it's been a while. I could fit that in on Friday, you know? Like that's just being conscious, and it's being super deliberate about how we just, like, let's be honest, life can be super tough. We just have to rig it. We have to rig our own happiness, and it's totally riggable.
One of the things that lights me up is my old yoga studio from Santa Monica. Now I live in a small town. We don't have that kind of yoga studio, but I just went down the mountain and I created a whole self-care day. Like on my way to LA, I stopped halfway at this place called Temple Radiance that had like the most incredible 2-hour massage. And then I got into LA, had dinner with my friend. In the morning, I went to my favorite yoga studio, and it's like the hot candlelit with epic music that's loud, and you just go into your own flow. And then I went to my favorite breakfast place and went to this compression lymphatic thing at some wellness social club. It was epic. I did like 9 things in a 26-hour period, and I got back and I was like, that was the best thing I could have done. And so I told my husband, I was like, I need to do this once a month, and I'm going to have another 26 hours of self-care. And so I'm doing it again in 3 weeks from now. I know that we have to build in these moments. And so part of that is being aware enough of identifying this was one of those moments. How can I build it in? Not in a stressful way, not in a, oh, but I don't have enough time, because I think that's what happens. It's like, well, how can I do that? Like we immediately think of the reasons why we can't, the reasons why we haven't, start feeling bad that we haven't been doing it instead of just immediately leaping forward. I'm just better at that nowadays because I know that dread that I had for so long of sitting on ideas. And now I'm so in tune with my inner voice. And I think it's that contrast. I spent so long numbing that out that now I'm like, there it is. I'm not going to ignore you because I don't want you to shut off again.
Yes.
I'm just going to, and the more that you're just like leaping into it, it's like constantly guided. Just go with it instead of all the regrets and all of the second thoughts and all of the resistance to the flow of your own life.
Oh gosh, your stories are so fantastic here. You just said something, because I love the play on words, even like going with the flow in a way. And you said, you've got this, like, I'm aware of this thing. It's like, awareness, intention, and action, right? Like to become aware. How am I doing? That's the pre-mortem, right? Like, how am I doing? Where are things awesome? Do more of them. Where are things crappy? Do less of them, change it. But like, and then the intention is like, what do I want? You seem in tune with the things that you know you want. And then your leap time between awareness, intention, and action is just super brief, especially, compared to your husband, who's a slower mover. I think there's going with the flow, to me, can work for you or against you. And I just caution the difference. Like yours is epic and fabulous. And I think you're just this inspiring case study of don't want to be the slow-mo life. I want to go for it. And slow-mo, meaning like I'll talk, no action. There's another version of the flow. And I think of it, I've called it before, like riding down the lazy river of life. And that's where the current takes you. But it's not because of what you're doing. You're in tune with, like you said, your intuition and what you want, and you're aware, and you're making these things happen. The other version is when it's like, do you ever feel like, yeah, your life is happening to you? And sometimes the things that happen to you are okay, like, oh, this job landed in my lap and I did it for 7 years and it was okay. But if I had chosen my own way, I might have chosen something better or different. Or, sometimes it's your friend group that just happens to be geographically determined, which can be great. Or sometimes it's like, I don't really know if they're my people. I don't really feel filled up when I come home from hanging out with them, but they're there and I go through the motions. So that's a different version of doot, 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 like lazy river of life, where sometimes we do need to pause that flow and be like, wait, it's okay, sweetie. Like, you got here, you're here. What would you like now? Because you could steer your dinghy, I don't know, or maybe there's a more fun vessel than a dinghy. I don't know, your speedboat, or no, your yacht. Let's take your yacht and like put it in the right water and like aim it towards what you want, which I think I get a little more feeling like you wanted a cat, you made a cat happen. You fixed the cat situation. You did it.
I think for me, what comes up is, whose stream are you in? Is this your own flow that's created from your energy and your dreams and your desires?
Mm.
Or did you get sucked into the current of society? Are you just going with that the one stream that everyone's collectively agreed on, that this is the way to success and this is what you should do and should be? And when you realize you're in that river, then it's like, get out. People are peeing all over the place in that river.
There's E. coli in here too.
Yeah.
So good.
And I think part of that is, it's just like what I mentioned of like being in the moment and being like, this is one of those moments that I need to make sure I'm repeating often. How am I going to make a plan for that? Let me look at my schedule. But at the same time, like you said, people are really captivated by nature. And when I first started dating my husband, we would be driving down the mountain, because I met him in Big Bear. Then we moved away and came back, but we'd be driving down the mountain and he'd always pull over to like look at the view. Mind you, I'm like in my 20s and I'm thinking, I didn't know anybody that pulled over to look at the view at that age. We were like looking up the nearest liquor store. And so I was really inspired by that. And I think he's instilled that in me over time, because I thought, I'm like, why am I not inspired by nature? And so I started to notice, and I'm like, oh, I am. I just haven't been allowing myself to see what's already here. And that happens a lot in my life in general. There's moments with my kids where everything's crazy, but then like one of them's laughing and I have to stop. And it's like I take this internal snapshot. Like right now, everyone's smiling. I just surrounded myself with people that I love, or I'm doing my work and I'm like, oh gosh, that was an hour block of flow. And I'm living into my purpose and I'm helping people. And people just don't stop to take that little snapshot of like, I'm on the right track. I'm saving this. Oh, this is steering me this way. And it reminds me of something that you talk about, is just finding the awe in your everyday moments.
Yes. The cheapest and cheeriest way to appreciate life and to just be in it. I mean, it's not cheerful is to have a near-death experience. That tends to sharpen people in terms of like an appreciation for life, but that's a different part of the conversation.
Let's go out and look for those.
Right. Yeah, never mind. Remember that movie Flatliners from a million years ago with Julia Roberts? And don't download it, but don't download it,
Yeah.
The tuning in and a more fun word I find is like attunement. It's noticing. It's saying like, holy cow, like you said, you seem to have like a radar, an antenna that's up when you're like, wait a minute, this is one of those moments. And for a lot of people, the act of keeping a gratitude journal is a very helpful exercise, even if it's just for 3 weeks at a time, because then it can get a little bit monotonous in a way, back to the routine thing. Blah. But if you start to record 3 or 4 or 5 things that you're grateful for that happened that day, or things that you feel appreciative of, your life starts to tune into the bud on the tree that you wouldn't normally have noticed because you were just in a hurry. Or, oh my God, the taste of that caramel chocolate that had the little crispy bits of salt on the top. And oh my goodness, that's amazing. That's going to go in my journal tonight. Like, you live a life that's looking for things and then you appreciate them. And so same thing, if we're tuned in and saying, I'm going to catch the moments as they happen, like catch aliveness with my butterfly net. And like, holy crap, like this moment right now, like I'm sitting and I'm looking around and I'm grateful for these people or for the fact that I get to sit and have this cup of iced tea or whatever the thing is for you, right? That in itself, it does take a bit of discipline, but that's life. And so that is the cheapest and cheeriest way to actually, have the old life well lived, because we could do that. And I could argue you could be in a prison cell and you could still eke out so much more fulfillment and joy than someone who is free on the outside, who has all the spoils and riches and possibilities, but who's just lamenting that, oh, I wished I got that Thai dish instead of this Thai dish, you know?
I was just trying to share that with my mother. It was funny because we were talking about something. I mentioned something about Croatia, and her first response is, "Well, our neighbor Kathy went there, and she just said it is not the way that it used to be." And I was like, "I don't live my life like that, Mom. I first of all, I'm not gonna avoid experiences because somebody else said that it was better 20 years ago when I've never experienced either." People are constantly doing that, and I think even with restaurants, and I tried to give her that example of like the worst thing you can do when you stop and get a burrito somewhere is compare it to every other burrito that you've had. Like, can you just sit there and eat this one burrito and notice what you like about it? What's unique about the ambiance?
Oh my gosh, I will never eat Mexican food again the same without thinking of your voice. This is so right. You're so on. Yes. Like, be in it right now. And like, dare we even say, because I want to make everything extreme to illustrate the point, like, again, back to like life being short. What if it was your last meal? That would be the best freaking burrito you'd ever had because you're going to savor the flavor, although you'd probably be very nervous about your pending death. But anyways, yeah, appreciate what in that moment. I love your lesson.
One of the things you talk about is rather than just expanding our experiences, actually deepening them.
Mm.
And it relates to another concept you talked about is like finding the sweet spot in vitality and meaning.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Okay, so I love this idea that many of us are interested in living longer. And yes, great. Yeah, let's add up the years as long as, there's quality there. So the quality component, not just quantity, I look at in two dimensions. It's of living wider with vitality and deeper with meaning. And the wider with vitality is sort of the obvious fun stuff, right? It's like, let's go to the amusement park. Let's go try the new cocktail bar. Let's go on the road trip. Let's have all the fun. And it's great. It's pleasure. It's experiences. It's frothy. It's fizzy. Great. And then the deepening with meaning tends to have more of the heavy hitting stuff like purpose. It has to do with maybe a connection to something that's bigger than you. So it could be religion, could be spirituality, or it could be just your version of awe. Back to your point about awe, like looking in the world up at the stars and realizing, oh, my problems are just so silly. Because look, I'm a speck in the universe, this fabulous universe, like the self-diminishment in a good way, it has to do with character, virtues, the good stuff. So life really is best lived when there's some combination of the width and the depth. And some of us have tendencies. Okay. So some people are way more zesty people and they have a way bigger fun threshold. They're like, get me to the next concert or get me to the next fun tasting menu. And like other people are like, can I just like stay home tonight, please? That's fine. Whatever floats your boat. Same thing around meaning. Like some people are like, I only feel like I am coming alive if I am volunteering for 38 hours a week. And some people are like, oh, well, I love when you do that. That's just that doesn't matter as much to me. And there's no judgment about any of these ways to live. Like, and I want to make that super clear because I talk about astonishing aliveness, like living to the point where you feel astonishingly alive. But I'm not trying to say that there's a model that you have to follow. Like it has to involve X number of trips a year, X number of nonprofits that you found, X number of, back to the burritos, whatever, right? But what is that sweet spot? I think this is where we do the pre-mortem and where we do the check-ins along the way and kind of do how am I feeling? If I just pause for a second and I look around and I go, okay, how am I doing on vitality? If I had enough fun lately, if I felt like I've been showing up and kind of, life's getting lived around here, or am I in a phase right now where I'm like, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, from The Shining. Like, that is the assessment we can take. Same thing about meaning. It's like, am I feeling right now like I'm connected to purpose or other people? Or am I just out there kind of having, to be quite honest, a little bit too much fun? I mean, and you may say there's no such thing as too much fun. That's fine, but are you offsetting it with some meaning? So those are the moments. And I listened to one of your podcasts recently about, there was somebody, and I forget her name, but she talked about being like clued into food signals in the body. And I loved how she referred to this idea about like, how badly do you have to pee right now? And that idea about like, we all just sort of, we intuitively know, do you have to pee or not pee or how badly, whatever. And so we kind of intuitively, if you would actually just stop and give yourself a hot sec to assess it, is how wide are you feeling right now? How deep are you feeling right now? And then as I make evident in the book, like there are 4 quadrants you could find yourself in at any given moment. And all we can do in that moment is go, huh, okay, good to know. Thanks for the intel, self. Now, what do I want to do about it? If I said I'm feeling a little bored and I want a little more fun, okay, well, that's cool. Like, what would be one thing I could do to make a plan within the next, week to zhuzh up the fun a little bit? And then we change the trajectory of our lives just like that.
When I was younger, I went for the thrills.
Mm.
And I got certified in skydiving. I did risky things quite a bit. Like I lived a whole year like the movie Yes Man, where I just said yes to everything. And I had just moved to LA. So one example is I remember I also had an intention to go to a different restaurant every single day my first year in LA so that I could get to know people, and I would like sit at the bar and meet the bartender. Met a lot of good friends that way. But
Oh,
I realized it was like 11 p.m. I hadn't gone out yet, so I went to this place Jones's in Hollywood. That's like a celebrity hotspot, and I saw the guy that plays Aiden on Sex and the City, John
oh
Corbett.
yeah.
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 Then his manager came and hit on me. Then the bar was closing. We were going home, and I just kind of turned to them. They were waiting for a cab, and I was like, "Do you need a ride?" And they're like, "Okay." So then I gave them a ride home to John Corbett's house, and then he's like, "Do you want to come in?" And I remember being like, "I'm so tired," but then I was just like, "Yes," because I like had to. Ended up being there till like 4, and I was like, "What?" And so many nights were like that where I was just like unfolding into it. But some of the situations I got myself into were pretty sketchy. Some of them were phenomenal. And then I remember the learning. I had just gotten certified in skydiving, just bought a new package, and the guy that packed my chute regularly died because his chute didn't open. And I decided never to go skydiving again at that moment. And it really created like this self-reflection of what am I chasing?
Mm.
And I started looking at it as a different lens and actually realizing that as fun as these thrills were and as many stories as I had,
Mhm.
I was actually making it harder to enjoy everyday moments.
Oh.
And what I found now in this version of me that does love my routines and loves noticing, and I want a sensational life, and I always have. But my definition of sensation now is how can I use all my senses and be completely immersed in this life right here, right now? And so I love creating experiences. Like when I have meditation moments or take a bath, I'm lighting candles and playing music and dimming the lights and having a bite of chocolate right before I get in. And I'm hosting a retreat in September, and I'm like already thinking about what do I want them to smell when they come in? What sensory experiences are we going to have when we're coaching? How can I get them into this moment? And so it's just a different version of that sensations, but it's again coming back to what is here right now, not something that I'm chasing
Yes.
and risking my life for.
Oh God. Okay. I can just barely contain myself here. Okay. The thing you're talking about, I don't know why I feel the need to name it scientifically nerdier, but there's this thing called hedonic adaptation or the hedonic treadmill, right? Where we acclimate pretty darn quickly to the good things in our lives. Now, the good news is that we also acclimate to the bad things. So, it's helpful to know that hardship we can find a way to make peace with over time. But when you're having a life of thrills, you're going from one movie star's place one night and doing all the things because that's what a life of yes might open up for you. It does create an upping of the ante of joy, of experience. And then we just kind of keep wanting more. Like the treadmill just keeps the pace is just, it's just like a 7.0. And I don't know about you, I can't run that fast. Like maybe not for more than a dare for 20 seconds. So that is a tough thing. So I think what you're talking about is beautiful because I think at different phases of life, someone listening right now might be like, I am making the next 6 months, the year, the half year of yes. Someone might say, I'm like, actually, funny enough, my sister Terry and I decided the month of July was going to be a month of yes. And that's a dose that might work for us. Now, I reserve the right to say no to various illegal substances, et cetera. But I think what you're talking about is recognizing where are you in life right now? What do you need and want? And what is the dose? So for most of us, especially when we get into like the years of our life where we've got some kind of a rhythm that we need to honor in some way, like as in we're not in college anymore, or you're not living right out of college. That typically looks like having a bit of a machine that's running and then recognizing, okay, so what is my need? Like, what's my dose for social? And I've had to do this sort of scientifically for myself because I've had to pinpoint like back to like, when do I come alive? When do I do too much? Because as an introvert, if I do too much, I'm then drained and I don't want to do anything for 2 weeks. And then I feel dead again because I'm watching Netflix every night, which I do love, but that too much of it is not a good thing for me either. So for me, I'm like, here's my dosing. Like, here's how much I can do in terms of lunches out or happy hours out or dinners out or whatever. And here's how much I need in terms of like reading time or R&R, where it's like a fun thing where I just maybe do, or alone time, like your 26 hours of down the mountain, self loving all the things. That's just freaking delicious. And so maybe there's a dose for that. Is it like, you know, for some people that might be like every 3 months, I can afford to do that, like literally with time, financially, whatever that is. So I think it's just being super aware, like, what is my right prescription in life right now? And then am I honoring it?
I think a big part of that is the ability to tune in and ask what you need. And we're so used to being handed prescriptions and reading a book and being like, well, this is the key to a good life. Well, now I read another book that's saying the opposite. I got to do this one. And in reality, all things are true. It's going to be different for different people, for different days, for different times in your life, even for different perspectives. Sometimes I can shift into a whole mood just because I'm like, what are the other, I always call it my Rolodex of mindsets, but I keep trying to change it to Tinder of mindsets because Rolodex is aging me. But it's like, just swipe, swipe, swipe. Oh, this one feels good. Okay. But at the same time, it's like tuning in. It's like, what am I going through? What do I need? How can I be with this? How can I release it? How can I revive myself? And that's just been such a big part of the last 10 years of my life, is recultivating that, getting that back after numbing and ignoring and overriding it, that it is my favorite part of this life. It is this life. It is what steers this ship. And so we've had such an amazing conversation about all of these things. I feel like I've been so lit up in the last hour. Let's leave people with a little piece of actionable mind love to take them through the rest of this week so that one of these amazing ideas becomes real for them.
Yeah, by the way, I'm taking notes over here about all the things you've said. So I'm loving this. One actionable thing, just to bring it all back to our friend, the Grim Reaper, and this is really so cool, by the way, because like you said, you've had fun in our conversation. And it's not because you are a morbid necrophiliac, right? It's because you can recognize we're talking about death as the mechanism to live really, really, really intentionally and amazingly. And I'm sorry, I even insinuated you were a necrophiliac. I take that back. So ultimately,
You're reading my diary.
I love you. You roll with it. So back to the Grim Reaper here, again, in service of all this electric, yes, in the right dose and making these great choices and being intentional and all the great things and getting kittens. It's this. It's, can I encourage us all to count how many Mondays we have left? So for women, you would start with 83 as the average life expectancy and minus however old you are today, and then multiply it by 52. And that's your math about however many Mondays you have left. If you identify as male, start with 78 as your life expectancy. And if you don't identify as male or female, start with 80 as kind of the average. And again, minus your current age, multiply by 52. That's how many Mondays you have left. And sometimes we need to see it in that granular, off kilter way to do exactly oh golly, wow, that's an interesting number. And that might be the very thing that helps to animate you into living a life that is ripe with all of the right priorities and choices that are right for you today, that you are so right, Melissa. Could change in the next 3 weeks, and that's fine. We will roll with those punches. But let's, in the meantime, make a choice to live today with our good friend Grim.
Well, thank you so much for making me very apparent about my 2,288 Mondays left. For listeners that are interested in finding out more about you, your book, connecting with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, I appreciate you even asking. My book is called You Only Die Once, How to Make It to the End with No Regrets. And I have a page for it on my website, which is 4000mondays.com. Thank you.
All the links for this episode will be at mindlove.com/363. Your challenge for this week is to try to count how many Mondays you think you have left. If you live a healthy lifestyle, maybe you can estimate you'll live till about 95. Or if you're like my stepdad, who constantly says, I'm lucky if I have about 10 years left. And he's been saying that for the last 20 years, and he only just turned 70. So I don't know what your mindset is, but you do. So estimate how many Mondays you think you'll have left. It is very motivating and inspiring to see that laid out. You can even ask ChatGPT to make your life easier. But then see if you can start making the most of each day, really remembering that each day is finite. How are you spending it? Are you doing the same things you did yesterday? Are you thinking the same thoughts you did yesterday? If so, how can you mix it up? Create something new. That is what you're doing in every single moment. You are creating your life. And when you bring a little more conscious into it, you realize the power that you've always had, that you've been letting slip through your fingers. So if you need a boost, reach out to me on Instagram at MindLoveMelissa, and I will give you a personalized pep talk. You can find all of my amazing sponsors at mindlove.com/sponsors. There's excellent things coming up. As of recording this, we have one spot left only in the Mind Love Retreat. You can check that out at mindlove.com/retreat. It's going to be absolutely epic. My goal is for you to live your absolute best life while at this retreat, so you come home a changed woman. So again, mindlove.com/retreat. Also, our very last round of soul strength activation for the year is starting at the end of the month. If you are interested in becoming absolutely clear on who you are and what you want out of this life, begin to align your life to do more of what you love, and then expand your mindset so you dream bigger like you did when you were a kid. This program is for you. Reach out to me on Instagram at MindLoveMelissa. Just send me a DM that says SSA and I'll take it from there. And that's all for today. So thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning into Your Higher Frequency with Mind Love. Head to mindlove.com for a free gift to keep your vibes up until next week.